Howdy y'all, it is Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. How you doing? It's been on my mind a little bit, and then actually Auspex Tactics did a wonderful video talking about some of the similar things that have been on my mind, because we need to talk a little bit about what's wrong with Warhammer 40k right now. And I don't enjoy making necessarily these kinds of videos or talking about this necessarily, but I think it's an important note in the journey of Warhammer 40k. Is Warhammer 40k in a good spot? I don't know that there's an answer that's positive in that. And for me, it's just a simple thing, because I got to play last weekend, and we had a good game. It was fun, but we weren't necessarily playing everything updated to all the new little rules and changes and adjustments, because of how, well, the big issue is just how complicated it is to find everything that is out there for rules. It's so frustrating. The thing that we've got right now, and it was interesting listening to Auspex talk about, like, this is better than where it has been, which is scary to think about, because what it is right now is we get every couple months an update, either to points or then balance update, right? Every other. And the points updates I'm fine with, and I would love. Rules updates, I would love a lot more if they would actually update the core rules, or update the codexes or indexes, whichever one, online at least. But that also means a codex that's a physical book is not really viable in that situation. But what we have to do is download and print every single one of these balanced data slates, Munitorium field manuals, rules commentaries that sometimes are more than just rules commentaries. They're actual rules changes, and not just a commentary on, hey, this is what this actually does. No, it's actually saying, no, this is how it functions now, period. It's a change. It's very frustrating. And it feels very quick, because me and my friend were playing, and then he was like, hey, I'd love to still do a tournament. And I'm like, that would be a lot of fun. And I messaged some of the guys that would be potentially a part of this tournament, and one of them says, well, depending on what rules we play. And I asked him for clarification later, because I'm like, okay, are you just asking just for advantage of rules? What's the request here? And he said something very profound, and I agree 100%. The rules have changed so drastically, so fast over 10th edition. He didn't know exactly how to play his factions very easily. And I'm like, if you're paying attention, you can keep up to date with it. But also, if you have a job and a life and a family and everything else going on, and other games and times with friends, you're not going to be paying attention to every single detail of what's going on here all the time. It's kind of a dumb thing that's happened here, and I agree with my friend there. The rules aren't necessarily in a good spot, because nothing is located in a central area. The core rules, if you were to download them today from Warhammer 40k website, they're still the exact same as at the beginning of 10th edition, and there's been massive changes even into the core rules section of how things function, as far as movement, visibility stuff, towering, Titanic or whatever, that kind of things. Like, they don't sound like big changes, but even a small change in each of those types of sections changes the game drastically in certain teams. Because a movement change changes charging factions pretty drastically, or even ranged line of sight potentially as well. Massive change from something super, super small. I wish we had everything in a central location, so that way we actually knew what was the changes, and I think Wahapedia updates itself as far as if there's a change on there that they find, they'll add it to Warhammerpedia. But that's the interesting thing. Is there a central location we can find this stuff? There is in Warhammerpedia, but that's not Warhammer 40k's official stuff. And so this off-brand program, you know, not licensed by Warhammer 40k stuff, GW, has much better information than the original thing. But it's also, what's interesting, Warhammerpedia is just going to put out the current version, and we're not going to necessarily see what the change was. And I don't blame Warhammerpedia for that. They're just putting out, okay, here's what it is now. This is it. So you have access to it. Boom. Print it. Go. I appreciate that a lot. It's not their jobs to give us all the changes. They're doing something way better, though, than Warhammer 40k is, as far as making sure we understand the functionality of the game, and not just separating these documents out into so many different pieces. That being said, even Warhammerpedia struggles with some of those pieces of putting them in, because where do they go? That becomes the hard question. Now maybe they fit into the core rules somehow, and they put them in there, and that's the hard thing, that even on like Warhammer 40k's app, which I guess would have updates to like units and stuff, and potentially your codex, maybe? I don't know if it does, but it wouldn't necessarily have the core rules changes, because those seem to be separated out into these balanced data slate documents that are also separate from each other. It's a frustrating time with Warhammer 40k, because we have so much fun playing it when we understand what's going on, but when we're arguing over rules just because nobody really knows which rules are current, because it's hard to keep up with everything. And sometimes then I think the other challenge, and I'm curious if you guys agree with me on this too, is keeping straight what's new and what's not. You know, what's been superseded. And like, we were having a movement question about base-to-base contact versus just being within an inch for an engagement range for charge. And we got to the solution, but it was still like we couldn't remember, because there was something in a balanced data slate a while back that was about, I think it was actually the pile in is what it actually was, but trying to remember all these little pieces and details, and the amount of extra paper documents that you have to have on hand just to keep track of the changes. It's frustrating. It's not a good system, and I hate that, because I love Warhammer 40k, and then we get stuff like these issues. I want to be able to sit down and play my Tau and my Necrons and just have a good time, but we're ending up arguing over, or even just discussing rules, because we can't remember, because there's been so many changes over time. And that's a painful thing to have happen. It really is. Because it just lends itself to an unfun, frustrating 10, 15, 20 minutes of trying to figure out what's different, what's new, what's changed, what's not. Are we remembering the rules? You know, we still look at the core rules. You can download them still today from Warhammer 40k, and they still have the stratagems the exact same as what they were, but that's not how they function anymore. That's not how they function at all. And, you know, for several of them in the core rules, like, they don't function like that. Like, small changes have massive impact on how they are functioning. And it'll drive you mad. It will drive you mad. So, yeah, I really do wish that Warhammer 40k would slow down on their updates as far as big rules changes. I think points alone can do so much for balance. They just can. Points alone can do so much for balance. What do you think about that? Like, is Warhammer actually in a good state or a bad state, or you kind of indifferent? Is it in a spot where you're like, you know, it's all right. I could see it having some better stuff, but I can work with what's here. Where are you at in this? Does the rules updates bother you, frustrate you? Let me know down in the comments below. It's not going to be a massive, you know, video as far as what to talk about, but I think it's a serious thing that's getting pretty frustrating, and you know, for the casual gamer, it's going to be more and more frustrating for Warhammer 40k to try to play it. You sit down to get ready to play, and somebody else goes, actually, that's not how that functions anymore, and now you can't actually fire your weapons. Sorry, I'm not in view now because of, you know, or whatever, right? It's like, you can't do this now because that stratagem doesn't work like that. Oh, I missed that balanced data slate. That kind of thing. Yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you think about Warhammer 40k, the state of it. I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerdom. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Bye, y'all.